Alright guys, welcome back to Sonic Creations. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about canon and what is canon from the official games and what isn't canon in my Sonic animated series or my Sonic universe, whatever you want to call it. So in the universe that I've crafted, I started thinking about the ideas for it around the time that Sonic Forces came out, a little bit after 2017. It was like the drought where after we were so disappointed in Forces and all we had was Mania, there was a drought of modern Sonic and we just didn't really have anything super satisfying to keep us busy until Frontiers came out. We didn't even know Frontiers was the thing. We thought it was Sonic Rangers, all that confusion. So pretty much a way you can think about it is that from Sonic 1 all the way through to Sonic Forces, all of those stories happened in my canon. Maybe not exactly the same, maybe not to a T, but they did happen to some capacity, fairly similarly to what we've seen in the official games. But beyond the point of Sonic Forces is where it gets complicated. I wanted to wait before I made this video because I wanted to see what the story of Frontiers was and what it was going to change, if anything, or what kind of things that could clash with my canon. And this little clip at the end of Frontiers and the final boss, at least the one right now, not any of the updates or anything like that or the DLC, just the final boss that was released with the game, where you're basically playing an iPhone game, and it says this:
I am infinite.
This kind of confused me because I was like, okay, so maybe when Infinite got sucked away, maybe that was this giant thing that was sucking Infinite into the Phantom Ruby dimension or whatever you want to call it, right? And keeping him for later. I thought Sega was going to save him for later and bring him back and sort of redeem him as a villain, because he's sort of not really remembered for being a good villain right now because of the terrible writing and story that we've seen in Forces. And it was a budget title, so it was even worse. And they didn't even show pretty much everything that conceptually I'm sure they wanted to show, but they just didn't have the budget or the time to do so, to really flesh out his character. So now, we have this half-assed character that we don't really have much connection with. I mean, comparing it to Shadow when he was introduced in Sonic Adventure 2, it's not even comparable. It's laughable. There's zero connection. We have no relatability with him. He's kind of just this faceless, they really didn't even show his face. The model, people had to custom make the model to make it look less soulless because they didn't even think that they would have to animate it. This is how many corners they've cut, as if it's such a big reveal to see what's under the mask, it's such a big deal. It's not. He's not Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. We don't need this big reveal for what he looks like without the mask. It's Infinite, you know what I mean? It shouldn't be that big of a deal to just show that and animate that so we can connect more with him, but never seeing his face just made it even worse, I think, on top of everything else, the bad writing and all that. So I knew that Infinite had a great design. He has a lot of potential. He has a good voice actor that voiced him in Forces. And so these are all things that showed promise to me. And I was like, all right, I want to do something with Infinite, not immediately, but I want to do something with him. Whenever someone ports a model to the workshop, I'm going to use that and incorporate him into the story in some way. And that's what happened. Whenever I started finishing up Revolution, I was like, how can I get these characters to the future to interact with Vector Man and all that kind of stuff in 2049? And then I decided, okay, this whole story is set in the future. So basically, Doomsday is I want to say 2044, and then there's a year time jump between Doomsday and Revolution that takes it to 2045. And then from 2045, when Infinite runs into them, takes them 4 years into the future, that takes them to 2049, which is, if you recall, if you've played Vector Man on the Genesis, that's the exact year where Vector Man's story takes place. And this is what I found fascinating, is I found an in for Vector Man as a character into my story, and to bring a Sega character that's not that well known, but I feel personally really melds well with the Sonic universe. I was like, this is the perfect opportunity, but how can I get them to the future without some convoluted Chaos Emerald crap that, I just think time travel with the Chaos Emeralds is a terrible idea, and I try to avoid it at all costs because I feel like it's too easy, it's too accessible to have such a power that just wipes out any form of storytelling or tension or anything like that. 06 did an okay job, but they didn't really explain it well enough and how it's possible and why the characters have never done it after that. It's a clear reason, at least one of the reasons why they rebooted it, other than the game just doing terrible, because they didn't finish it, of course. I'm a huge believer in what 06 could have been, if you can't tell. And Project 06 is certainly proof of that. But anyway, off the topic. I don't even know how we got here. So the whole time travel thing with Chaos Emeralds didn't sit well with me. So we need something that can take them to the future, and the Phantom Ruby was the perfect thing to do that because it has a lot of untapped potential. It was able to take classic Sonic and bring him into the story of Forces, into the modern world, and then take him back. So clearly it has a lot of abilities that we don't really know about, and I wanted to sort of add some abilities to that, which includes time travel and dimensional travel to the list of the many things that the Phantom Ruby can do. That's how I got Infinite in. Now, connecting this back to Sonic Frontiers, when I heard that giant red ball floating in space, because I really don't have any better name for it, say that I'm infinite, I'm whatever, you know what I mean? I'm everlasting. When I heard the word infinite, I was like, they're gonna bring this guy back. They have some sort of plan. They must, right? And if there's a Frontiers sequel and they continue the story, I have no idea where they're going with this. They still haven't explained that symbol, that weird ass symbol we saw in the marketing for Sonic Frontiers back when we thought it was Sonic Rangers. At the end of the game, they still tease it after all of this waiting. And so like, I just don't know where they're going with this story, and it's frustrating because this is the first time in a long time where the writing is actually becoming a little higher level because they got rid of you-know-who. Now there's cliffhangers and shit, and I don't know what to do with that, you know, and it totally threw me off. So I was like, I don't really know if Frontiers will fit into my canon, because if they make a sequel to it, or if they continue from that in any way, which they must, right? There's still a lot of unanswered questions. So we know they're going to come back to that at some point. Maybe not the next game, but come on, it pretty much is going to be the next game that we get a Frontiers sequel or some sort of continuation of that story with a different title. I don't know, but it's definitely going to happen. And I just don't see the full picture of where they're going with this, and so including that in my canon just doesn't make any sense. So officially I'm saying now that Sonic Frontiers and everything that comes after Frontiers is not canon to my canon, if that makes sense. My canon goes up to pretty much Forces, and that's it. Maybe Team Sonic Racing, sure. You know, throw it in there, but most likely not. I'm kind of glad because it gives me more freedom. In my mind, Sonic Forces takes place in the year it came out. So 2017 is the year that Sonic Forces storyline happened, at least in my canon, in my head. So 2044 is where Doomsday starts. Just to give you a little perspective of like how far in the future my series takes place. The characters are a little bit more seasoned. Like Silver is a lot more powerful, and they're training and they're getting even more powerful, and you can see that in episode 2 of Cybernetics. You know, Knuckles catches Silver training on Angel Island. And so these are things that I really want to emphasize, is that the characters are pretty much at their peak in terms of their abilities and strength. There's nothing they don't know. There's still more to explore, and they can still get stronger in general. But like, if as long as they're training, there's not much left in terms of abilities for them to discover unless they like create new abilities through years of training. And because Revolution and Doomsday take place only a year apart, there's a year time jump in between there hasn't been a lot of time for them to grow that much, right? Even as characters, forget the abilities, like as characters they still have a lot of room to grow, even though it's been so many years. And in terms of like stuff like the origin of the Chaos Emeralds, I do want to create my own origin for that. Sonic's parents, Manic and Sonia, I do want to explore that in my own way, of how Manic and Sonia are going to come into the story, because I do have plans for that, which of course will take place after the events of Aftermath. Sonic Aftermath is going to happen directly after Cybernetics, so you can kind of get a feel of like, it's going to be a little while until we get to stuff like Manic and Sonia and a bunch of other characters coming in. And Aftermath is not just what you think it is. There's also a lot of other new characters coming in, characters that we haven't seen in my canon yet, or the official canon for that matter. One of those characters being Sally. I think you can guess the rest of the cast, but I have their own thing going on another planet. So I'm thinking of maybe I don't want to say too much and give too much away, but basically Sally and the gang, I'll keep that vague. They were sent by GUN to Mars because they're colonizing Mars, and they transform the climate on Mars. So Mars, in my canon, it looks a lot like Earth. It's not like the red desert sort of thing that you've seen in all the movies, and it's gonna be like the fully, like basically what Elon Musk wants to do with Mars has already happened. That's where they've been this whole time. Basically from 2044, the Doomsday event, all the way to now, Sally and all those characters, associated with her have been on a mission to protect Mars. They are the protectors of Mars, and because to start up civilization, you never know what supervillain is going to come in and try to screw that up, right? Or take over that planet when it's vulnerable. So there had to have been some Mobians that they needed to spare to go protect that planet. So that's a storyline that we're going to see in Aftermath. So very, very soon, we're going to get to see those characters, and it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be so much fun. And so as you can see, my canon greatly deviates. I mean, like, I could say, well, Frontiers did happen and it took place like in 2022, you know, and 2044, that's like 22 years later. That's plenty of time for all that stuff to be wrapped up. But it doesn't explain, like, if they do anything with Infinite, it immediately will break the continuity of my canon and ruin everything and not make any sense. So in your head, when you're thinking about my canon, when you're watching my show, just know that everything happened from Sonic 1 to Sonic Forces, everything. Every single game in that lineup, which is most of them, at least the important ones so far. Frontiers is important, not to make it sound like that game doesn't matter. It does. I don't get what they're doing with the story. I have no idea. And honestly, Frontiers contradicts a lot of things from Sonic Adventure, and I'm sure you guys have seen some videos on stuff like that. I'm not going to get into that because it is just a headache, not what I'm here to talk about. But I think that's all I wanted to cover. I just wanted you guys to know that, like, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 and all those, you know, Heroes, those games did happen in my canon to some degree, you know, not literally, but to some degree, which is why I used footage from the Shadow the Hedgehog intro and CGI cutscenes in Revolution, because while I could have remade those cutscenes, it wouldn't have connected to what I'm trying to reference as well. I mean, let me know what you guys think, but to me, first of all, I don't even have those black alien models. I don't have them. So all the aliens would be like something else in its place, or I'd have to pay someone to model those and put them in, or figure it out myself, which I want to do, but it takes a lot. Because it's not easy when you have like zero experience in Blender and rigging and adding the physics and the bones and everything like that, and the physics boxes around it, and actually successfully exporting that, having it work. I mean, I haven't gotten anything I put into Blender to work properly or export properly. There must be something I'm doing wrong. But when the day comes, which is soon, because I'm going to sit down, I'm going to dedicate some time and figure it out soon, so I can start porting my own models and not have to worry about paying someone to do it for me. But whenever that day comes, then, you know, if I want to do anything with the black aliens in the future, or any model that I just don't have, I can do that, right? And that'll be great. That'll be so much fun. I think that's all I wanted to cover. I just wanted to clear that up. I'm going to be making more videos about my show and sort of explaining what things are, why they are the way they are, and my ideas going forward, as long as I'm not spoiling too much or giving too much away. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Seriously, it brings me so much joy knowing that you guys are enjoying the content I'm putting out, and you're excited for what comes next in the show, and you want to see more content from us. It means the world, and I am so excited to see where this channel can go and this community can go. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, and I will be busting my ass, getting things done as fast as I possibly can with the time that I have. But I'm making good progress on episode 5, just so you guys know. I'm very, very proud. I mean, as usual, I say this every time to myself, but I'm just like, this is turning out way better than I thought it would. I mean, this episode is certainly that. So you guys are in for a treat, and thank you again. I'll see you in the next video, creators. Peace out.